Gwendolyn, the new legendary healer, limited legendary, only available until the end of the 28th of December, after which you will no longer be able to get her. So Gwendolyn, how is she? What does she do? Well, Gwendolyn is a healer for the North faction. She is not a lord. As for her abilities, she has a talent that means allies with any kind of shield gain an extra 10% extra damage absorbed. I believe this just means any shields applied while you have Gwendolyn in the team are 10% larger. And allies below 50% HP, when they are shielded by Gwendolyn, the shield can absorb 20% extra damage. So I'm guessing if you shield someone below 50% HP, the shield is 20% bigger. Again, coming from Gwendolyn only. So a bit fiddly there. I'm not keen on the text on the talent, but I think we get what it means. As for the skills, the first attack is pretty simple. Gwendolyn shields one ally in range, which can absorb damage equal to 20% of her max HP. This cannot be affected by attack speed bonus, which is important to keep in mind. As for Gwendolyn's ultimate, Icy Shell grants a shield to one ally in range, which can absorb damage equal to 70 to 90% of Gwendolyn's max HP, depending on skill ups, and each of the surrounding allies gains a shield with half of the strength, lasting for 10 seconds. So if you cast it on an ally, and if they have people on the 8 tiles around them, any of those tiles, any or all of those tiles, those allies will gain 45% of Gwendolyn's max HP as a shield, including herself if she casts it on someone next to her. She has two passives. The first passive, Shield of Hope. When the shields for allies are gone, the target will restore 10% of their max HP. So if she shields someone with either her ultimate or her auto attack, and that shield is broken or dissipates, they gain 10% of their max HP back. Just a correction, this is between 5 to 10% max HP back, depending on skill ups. Her second passive, Frigid Flurry, when the shields for allies are gone, deals damage equal to 10 to 15% of her max HP to up to 2 enemies around the allies and inflicts freeze. And if we click on this, we can see the freeze lasts for half a second. They are unable to take action, so it's kind of a stun. So that's it for her toolkit, her skills. We will quickly talk about her awakening, and then I'll go over what I think of her skills, where they're useful and how it works. So for her awakenings, her first one, Frigid Flurry, has one additional target, meaning it can freeze 3 people instead of 2 people. This just sucks, to be honest with you. I don't know what they were thinking. The freeze is half a second. There's 2 targets, up to 3 targets, and it's just not really what you use her for. So I think this is a really garbage awakening. I apologize if you've only got A1. A2 gives her health. Everything she does scales on health, so that's not bad. That's quite useful. A3, this is really, in my opinion, the only massively useful awakening from her. Allies around the main target of the Icy Shell also gain a full shield. So this means rather than 90% on one target and then 45% on adjacent tiles, it's now 90% on the first target and 90% on all adjacent tiles. This is a huge shield on so many people, and it massively increases her ability to function and thrive in what she is supposed to do. Awakening 4, another 1200 health, which is again quite decent, and Awakening 5, after releasing Icy Shell, gains max HP 5% till the end of the battle, stacking up to 5 times. I don't know if this is for just Gwendolyn or for the people the shield is applied to. It's hard to tell. Either way, her ultimate has a high rage cap. It takes a long time for it to come back. I don't see you being able to cast this 5 times in a battle. It's quite unlikely, and by that point you've probably ended it anyway. So I don't think her A5 is particularly useful. The Awakening 3 is really the only thing in here that justifies any kind of benefit. The rest of it is very negligible, very forgettable, but the Awakening 3 is very powerful and makes her a real powerhouse in the new levels of Gear Raid 2, which are very damaging. So now that we have an overview of her talents, we'll go back to her skills and I'll talk about them a bit. I have experimented with Gwendolyn quite a bit and I have used her extensively in the new Gear Raid level, so I feel like I have a pretty good idea of her. Something to keep in mind with shields is they can stack. If Gwendolyn uses her first attack and places a 20% max HP shield on herself, and then ultimates on herself, she'll have 110% of her max HP as a shield. So the shields can stack, which is quite important and very powerful. As for how her ultimate Icy Shell works, there are 2 ways that this ultimate targets. Annoyingly, you cannot target it. As with everything in this game, ultimates can only be activated or auto. There is no in between, there is no targeting. Icy Shell, when you activate it, will cast the shield on the lowest HP ally in range, or assuming everyone is on full HP, it will cast the shield on the last person you placed. So if you place 5 heroes down and Gwendolyn is last, she will cast it on herself. Or if someone else is last, she will cast it on them. If one person is slightly wounded, she will cast it on that person. So that's how this works. It's quite annoying. It can mess up a lot of things in Gear Raid 2. So bear that in mind with your placements. You may want to place her last because Her shield on other people is going to be colossal. If you look at her stats, and because and we'll go over the gearing in a second, it's quite easy to get a lot of health on Gwendolyn. If she's casting a 45% shield on her allies of an amount around 50k HP, which should be quite doable, that's going to be between 20 and 25k health that you'll be chucking as a shield into people. That is more than enough to survive in Gear Raid 2 19, not 20. But in 19, it should be more than enough to save most of your allies. But for herself, the damage she takes would be 150% of her max HP, so she really needs a bigger shield than 45%, because her health plus 45, 145, minus 150%, she's dead. So you need to keep in mind how her ultimate Icy Shell casts and how it targets to make sure that maybe you need to get it to cast it on herself, otherwise she may die. As for her passives, when shields expire, 10% max HP, this is garbage. It so rarely comes in usefulness. If it was 10% of her max HP, hallelujah, she would be incredible. She would be truly an amazing healer, and she would rival some of the best healers out there. And maybe that's not what they want. I can understand. It would be perhaps too strong, but the way it currently works, it's crap, and it's just so negligible. Her second passive, also crap. Frigid Flurry. Does some damage equal to 15% of her HP. Bear in mind, mine is quite tanky, max level, max promoted, and all of her gear is maxed on the main stats, so really the only thing that could be different is the HP bonus on her weapons. You can see they're nearly purple, but neither of them are purple or gold, so that could be higher. And on the right side, instead of the Guardian set, I could have given her the HP set instead to give her 10% extra health, a Slepius set, but I'll go into gearing again later. But yeah, so I could get a bit more health, but not a crazy amount more. Bear in mind, mine is also Awakened 4. I have a lot of extra health from that. If you look at the Awakening again, this is granting me another 2400 max HP. So I have a lot of health, and with this amount of health, it's about 55,000 health. And if you were to turn that into this damage at max skill, 15%, that comes out to what, 8,000 damage, 8.2k? That's nothing. That's 8.2k to 2 targets when a shield is broken, and then they get frozen for half a second. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. And the Awakening, increasing the targets by 1, who cares? It's really, really not useful. Her toolkit just doesn't make sense. Maybe because she's limited. Now, one thing I've been thinking is I actually prefer it if she isn't overpowered, because you can't get her after Wednesday. If she was so good that she was stapled in loads of content, it would suck if you joined the game in January. So I prefer that she's a bit weaker. I think that's okay. I just think she shouldn't be this garbage. Her passives just are trash. Her basic attack is pretty good. 20% max HP shield on every attack is really good. And her ultimate is very powerful as well. The targeting is very janky and very, very frustrating at times, but it is a very powerful ultimate. But her 2 passives are just garbage. They should really be reworked to do something slightly more interesting than this. Give people health regeneration while they're shielded, or any other mechanics you can think of. Maybe change how this works to freeze for a longer period, or something else. But as it stands, she is not great with toolkit. As for skill ups, you really just want Icy Shell. If you're lucky enough to max Icy Shell, ignore the other 2. If you are building Gwendolyn to use in Gear Raid 2, you really do want to max her Icy Shell. The 90% max HP shield will be very necessary on people. It's very hard to use tanky fighters alongside Gwendolyn in Gear Raid 2 19 onwards. Someone like Salovic, his base HP is so high that it's difficult for her shield to actually save him from the boss's Shriek attack. You really do need the extra shield strength from that to guarantee that you can save most of your team. So skill ups, you definitely need Icy Shell. The rest of it is just so negligible that it doesn't matter. If you're lucky enough to get her ultimate maxed out, that's all you need. Finally, moving on to gearing and stats for Gwendolyn. I think she is probably one of the easiest characters to actually gear because her stat requirements are so low. She needs health. That's it. She doesn't even scale on attack speed, so you don't even need to worry about attack speed. I think stat priorities for her would be HP bonus, and it would be a toss-up between defense and rage recovery. I think that's really it. You want HP bonus, and then you want HP flats as a sub, and then after that you want to pick up some defense, and you want to pick up some rage recovery. You could pick up healing effect as well. You notice I have got a fair bit, because it will help with the 10% max HP restored to people, but it's never really going to be beneficial. That passive is just too weak, so building healing effect isn't really worth it on Gwendolyn. I don't believe it affects shields. So yeah, she just needs health. She really just needs health. Some rage recovery would help, as her ultimate rage cap is fairly big. if you look, it costs 1,000 at max skill, so 1,200 when not maxed. Her first casting, she starts with 700 rage, so she's quite good in the first one. The subsequent shields take a bit of time to get up, so rage recovery would be quite decent on her, but as we've seen in previous videos, rage recovery is not scaling very well at the moment. So really, as mine has gone, HP bonus, HP bonus, HP bonus. And as for what gear sets to use, on the left I'm using Elite Defender because it's HP. It's what everything she does that's important to scales on. So HP with HP percent substats. Everything else just doesn't really matter. You want to pick up some defense to try to help make her effective health higher. And so the right side, I think there's maybe 3 choices you could argue. The Asclepius set, the Guardian set, and the Mana Spring set. So Asclepius, if we have a look, max HP 10%, healing effect 15%. I would suggest it just for the 10% max HP bonus. It's not a crazy amount, it's like 1500 health extra, but it's something. It's the only extra HP you can get through this. Mana Spring gives you free flat rage regen also, so every second you're gaining 3 extra rage. Nothing crazy, but it's a benefit. Personally, I have gone for the Guardian set. This is because it just flat reduces damage taken by 15%. The place where she really shines is in Gear Raid 2, 19 onwards, and minus 15% damage taken will help her a lot to survive, especially because the Shrieks will be hitting her for massive damage as they do scale on your hero's HP. So she will be getting nuked by the Shrieks, and it is quite hard to keep her alive. So that covers her skills, her awakening, and her gear. Quickly to mention artifacts, I have gone with the Jungle Relic. And you may wonder, hey, but that doesn't give... that gives healing effect and she doesn't heal. Why would you give her that? It's because she is so incredibly well designed that almost no artifact is useful on her. So you just take the one that has the highest stats. There are 2 possible legendary artifacts you could give her. One of them is rubbish. The other one could potentially be good but is very limited in its usefulness. We have the Watcher's Fortune. Maybe you could experiment with this. I don't think it would be worth it. I would rather have flat stats. And then the other one is Spirit Horn. Initial rage plus 25% when deployed. This would effectively allow her to start with her ultimate ready. So I would say either take a Myth for the flat stats or take Spirit Horn so that you can start with the ultimate available, which may help with your timing in certain missions. But I don't think it's that necessary. I personally will just be taking the Myth artifact for the extra health. So that covers her skills, skill ups, awakening and gearing and artifact. So all that's left is to talk about where she's useful. She is useless in Guild Boss because you need to focus on damage. You need to kill the shields. If you're trying Guild Boss in Nightmare 4 and you can't break the shield but you want everyone to stay alive after the shield, you could experiment with using her to save people with her ultimate, but her ult takes a while to charge up, so you couldn't really place her late. But maybe you could experiment with that. Maybe she could act as a way to save your team from a wipe just so you can get through to the next shield and do some damage. But in terms of being a staple part of a team, she's not really useful. She doesn't really do any damage. She does a fractional amount of damage from her passive. She could situationally be useful in campaign progression. I believe she would actually be very useful in the final chapter campaign, mainly because Calypso at the end shoots these lightning arrows which do ridiculously heavy damage. You can actually pay attention to the positions of them, like it's like one's here, she moves around, one's there, and moves back around, and then one's there. So if you pay attention to when that is and you have her down, you could use her to block the lightning arrows. Her shield would definitely be enough to save that. So in niche campaign mission scenarios where there is very heavy burst damage coming out, she could be useful. In regards to the raids, promotion raid is always easy, it's not really worth talking about. Resource raid, no use whatsoever, she doesn't do damage. In the artifact material raid, I don't think you would want to use her here. You need healers, really. You need someone actually keeping people alive, and her healing when shield broken is not going to be enough. They'll just die. In the faction trial, she can be used for the frost, which will be good. And in the basic trial, I don't think she'll be particularly useful there either. You could experiment for sure. She does freeze for half a second, which may somehow be useful. I would rather have a proper healer. There's a lot of damage in that mission, and it's not burst damage that her shield would be great against. You really just need to have consistent heals coming out. In Tide, however, she should actually be quite effective, though currently Tide seems to be purely a measure of your BP and doesn't really seem to matter too much about your team. You just need to clear the BP value. I've heard some people doing funky stuff to win just by BP. Beyond that, we are left with the gear raids. You could use her to heal the tank in Gear Raid 1. Having only a single person or 2 people to throw shields on would actually be quite good for her and be quite easy for her to achieve. And maybe some of the damage and some of the freeze could be useful, but I don't really foresee it. Once again, I would probably rather just take someone else. In Gear Raid 3, again, you just really would probably want to have a healer. Her passives aren't enough to justify just throwing shields on people, because ultimately when the shield breaks, they'll probably take more than 10% of their max HP as damage, as things tend to. As for the current content in the game, the single place I would truly recommend her is in Gear Raid 2. She got me one of the first clearances on the server. If we go to the lineups that cleared the stage, we can see there's now a fair few people that have cleared this, and if we have a look, you can see that the majority of them are using Gwendolyn. So this is really the single place where she shines. I have a video showing how I cleared stage 19, so I would recommend checking that out to see exactly how I use her rather than going over it too much in depth in this. But mainly you need to play with how her ultimate lands, and that pretty much covers how Gwendolyn is used, where she's best. She is a member of the North faction, so something else that is worth mentioning is if you are fortunate enough to have Helga, who is now named Isolde, or if you are lucky enough to have King Haas, you will have access to their Lord benefits. The faction bonuses are quite good and they line up very neatly with Gwendolyn, but nothing that's going to make her incredible. Again, I would still say she would be stuck as just a Gear Raid 2 hero, but having said all of that, the game is changing slightly now, and the gear raids are getting harder. No one is clearing 21 from what I'm aware of. Some of the players on the older servers are clearing 20. And now when we're getting to the end game where you actually really need specific heroes to beat hard content for gear raids, this kind of stuff is kind of okay. Gwendolyn being only good in Gear Raid 2 isn't the worst, because it's important. You need to farm gear. And the higher floors you farm in the gear raids now, the more chance of Ancient Myths to drop. And Ancient Myths can now drop on all accessory slots, so there is a benefit to having a hero that helps you clear those. I would not have been able to clear 19 without Gwendolyn, so I do think she has her place. It's just a very small niche area in the game at the moment. My recommendations for Gwendolyn: you can use her for Gear Raid 2. Outside of that, if you have nothing better, you can use her, but really you would much rather be building a proper healer. She cannot replace a healer's role. Her passives are too weak to do that. If you are very early game and you pulled her and you're wondering how good she is, the long and short of it is she's not going to be very good for you. You're going to have to wait until you're clearing further into Gear Raid 2, and you need this kind of level of protection. Before that, you would be better suited to building up proper healers. If any of the developers are watching, I would ask that you please revisit her skills, because these two talents are crap. I just truly don't know where these would be useful. A half a second freeze is rubbish. Healing 10% of the target's max HP is rubbish. Too much of her toolkit just doesn't work very well. And to top it off, the artifacts are just completely useless for her. I would ask that you revisit her talents, fix those up. I would ask that you revisit her awakening, because the first one, again, is tied to the very useless talents. And like I said, I'm not heartbroken, because I would prefer limited heroes to not be overwhelmingly strong. But I think Gwendolyn could do with some revisiting, because at the moment I would strongly recommend new players to avoid her unless you have no epic healers. Gwendolyn's place is purely for Gear Raid 219 onwards. I believe that's probably where she'll stay. As she's a limited hero, I'll be surprised if they release any updates or changes to her. So unfortunately, she's probably going to be a storage guardian for many players. But we can hope. Maybe the developers will change her or buff her or give her some kind of usefulness. There's also a chance that content in the future may be harder and have more burst damage for her to help with. So maybe there's hope yet. But anyway, in summary, Gwendolyn is a very, very niche healer. I would call her more of a support than a healer. Her shields are very, very powerful, but they are kind of fiddly to use and awkward. And you need her awakening free to make her truly powerful in Gear Raid 2, especially for 20 and 21. Beyond that, she doesn't really have any usefulness whatsoever. So, congratulations if you've pulled her. She will help you in Gear Raid 2. If you are hoping to use her outside of that, you're out of luck. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.